I used to be a paranormal exploration streamer, specializing in visiting haunted locations at midnight. One late night, I arrived at an abandoned hospital. It was said that a massive fire had broken out here years ago, killing many patients and medical staff. Holding my phone, I live-streamed as I walked into the hospital lobby. The beam from my flashlight swept across the mottled walls, and the floor was littered with broken glass and charred debris. The air was thick with the smell of burnt material, making me grimace. Hey everyone, this is the infamous haunted hospital. Legend has it that at midnight, you can hear the screams of patients. I whispered into the camera. Suddenly, my phone screen started flickering, and the signal became extremely unstable. I tapped the phone, but the screen showed a blurry figure standing behind me. My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly turned around, sweeping the flashlight across the empty lobby. There was nothing there. But when I looked back at the phone screen, the figure was still there, and it seemed closer now. Probably just a signal issue, I said, trying to stay calm as I continued forward. As I walked down the hallway, I heard faint footsteps behind me, as if someone was following. I quickened my pace, and the footsteps sped up too. When I stopped, the footsteps stopped as well. Sweat began to bead on my forehead, and the flashlight beam flickered. That's when I noticed a shattered mirror on the wall. In its reflection, I saw my own figure, and behind me, a charred, humanoid shape. Terrified, I turned around again, but there was still nothing there. However, in the mirror, the charred figure slowly raised its hand and pointed toward a room at the end of the hallway. The livestream chat exploded with messages. Run, streamer. Run, behind you. There's someone behind you. Oh my God. What is that thing? I took a deep breath and decided to follow the viewer's advice, heading toward the room. As I pushed the door open, a strong burnt smell hit me. Inside were 3 hospital beds, their sheets charred black. Suddenly, my phone screen went completely black. At the same time, the door slammed shut behind me. I frantically turned the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. In the darkness, I heard rustling sounds from the beds, like someone shifting under the sheets. Then, a hoarse voice whispered in my ear, "You're finally here. We've been waiting for you." I spun around, but the beds were empty. The flashlight beam swept across the room, revealing nothing. Yet, the feeling of being watched grew stronger, as if countless eyes were staring at me from the darkness. "Stay with us. Forever," the voice echoed, now coming from all directions. I slammed into the door, finally breaking through and sprinting out of the hospital. I didn't stop running until I was sure I was safe, gasping for breath. When I got home, I reviewed the livestream footage. From the moment I entered the hospital, 3 blurry figures had been following me. And in the hospital room, when I turned around, the footage clearly captured 3 charred figures reaching out to grab me. That livestream recording is still on my computer, but I've never had the courage to open it again. And I'm a freelance photographer. This time, my friends Jack, Sarah, and I decided to explore an amusement park that had been abandoned for decades. Rumor has it that a mysterious accident occurred here 30 years ago, leaving the place deserted and notorious for being haunted. By the time we arrived, the sun was setting. The park's entrance was rusted and worn, with a no entry sign hanging on the gate. Jack easily climbed over the fence, and Sarah and I followed closely behind. "They say the Ferris wheel turns on its own at midnight," Sarah said, shining her flashlight toward the towering wheel in the distance. "Some people have even seen a clown wandering around the carousel." I raised my camera and started capturing the eerie surroundings. The dilapidated rides looked especially unsettling in the fading light. The wind blew through the rusted structures, making creaking sounds as if whispering forgotten secrets. We made our way to the carousel. Suddenly, my camera's flash went off on its own. Curious, I checked the photo and froze. There was a faint, shadowy figure standing beside the carousel. "Look at this," I said, showing the picture to Jack and Sarah. At that moment, the carousel creaked to life, turning slowly while emitting a shrill, metallic noise. We backed away in alarm, but then we heard a strange, chilling laugh behind us. "Welcome to Happy World," a raspy voice said. We spun around and saw a figure in a tattered clown costume. In his hand, he clutched a rusty axe. His pale face seemed almost ghastly in the dim light, and a twisted smile stretched across his lips. "Run," Jack shouted, grabbing Sarah and me as we bolted toward the exit. No matter how fast we ran, we always ended up back at the carousel. It felt as if the park's layout had shifted, trapping us in a nightmarish maze. "It's a ghost loop," Sarah whispered, trembling. Suddenly, every ride in the park came to life. The Ferris wheel began to turn slowly. Bumper cars crashed into each other without drivers, and the carousel spun faster and faster. The clown's eerie laughter echoed through the park, accompanied by the unsettling sound of his axe dragging against the ground. We reached the haunted house. "Let's split up and hide," Sarah suggested. "We'll meet back here later." Jack and I agreed and darted inside. Jack hid in the witch scene. Sarah disappeared into the deeper sections, and I found a large tombstone in the graveyard scene. I crouched behind it, covering my mouth to suppress any sound. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. Each second felt like an eternity. Then, I heard heavy footsteps and the scraping of the axe against the floor. "I found you," a deep voice murmured. Jack's scream pierced the silence. "No, ah." His cry was cut short, leaving an eerie stillness behind. My heart pounded violently in my chest as the clown began humming a disturbing tune. come out, wherever you are," he sang softly. The footsteps grew closer. I held my breath, trying to remain motionless as the clown approached the graveyard. Suddenly, a noise from the other side caught his attention. Sarah burst out from her hiding spot, and the clown immediately limped after her. I seized the opportunity to slip out and ran in the opposite direction. I made it to the exit, but stopped when I spotted a set of wooden stakes in the caveman exhibit. They looked sharp and sturdy. Grabbing one, I prepared myself and hurried back into the park. I scanned the area anxiously. There was no sign of the clown or Sarah. Just when fear threatened to overwhelm me, I heard a faint rustling. I turned and found Sarah crouching behind a bush. I noticed he limps and can't move quickly. I whispered to her, "We can use that to our advantage." I quickly laid out a plan, and Sarah nodded in agreement. She would lure the clown to a narrow passage, while I hid above with the stake. Sarah crept forward, deliberately making noise. The clown spotted her and started to chase, dragging his axe along as he moved. She led him to a fenced corridor, just as planned. I was already waiting on top of the fence, clutching the sharpened stake tightly. As the clown passed beneath me, I leapt down and drove the stake deep into his shoulder. He howled in pain, dropping the axe to the ground. Sarah snatched the axe and swung it at his leg, causing him to collapse to his knees. I struck again, piercing his other shoulder with all my strength. Slowly, his body began to dissolve into thin air, leaving behind only the ragged clown suit and the rusty axe. Panting heavily, we stared at the remnants in disbelief, our hearts pounding with the relief of having survived. Without looking back, we sprinted to the parking lot, jumped into the car, and sped away from the cursed amusement park. It wasn't until we had driven miles away that we finally stopped to catch our breath. That night, we called the police. When they arrived, only Jack's lifeless body remained. To this day, the clown has never been found. Years ago, when I was still a college student, my boyfriend Mark, my younger sister Lily, and our friends Beth, Vincent, and Edward visited an abandoned villa deep in the mountains. This villa was the site of a horrific family massacre. A family of 5 was brutally murdered, and the killer was never caught. We arrived at dusk. The villa stood ominously in the fading light, vines creeping over its cracked walls, and broken windows staring back at us like hollow eyes. "They say the family was found in the basement," Beth said, her flashlight illuminating the villa's entrance. "Their bodies were arranged in some kind of eerie ritual." We pushed open the creaking front door, and dust swirled through the air. The living room was in disarray, with overturned furniture and a shattered family portrait hanging on the wall. The faces in the photo were scratched out. "Let's split up and look for clues," Mark suggested. "Anna, you and Lily check upstairs. The rest of us will search the first floor." Lily and I ascended the rickety staircase. At the end of the upstairs hallway, we found a child's room. As we opened the door, a chill swept over us. The room contained 2 old dolls, their glassy eyes staring unblinkingly. "Look at this," Lily whispered, pulling a dusty journal from under the bed. Before we could read it, Vincent's voice echoed from below. "Come down here." We found the basement. We rushed downstairs to find the others in the kitchen, standing around a hidden trapdoor. It was wrapped in thorny vines and nailed shut with a rusty cross. "This is seriously creepy," Edward muttered. With some effort, we pried the trapdoor open, releasing a foul, decaying stench. The basement walls were covered in strange symbols, and broken mirrors and melted candles littered the floor. In the center of the room sat 5 ragged dolls, posed exactly like the victims of the massacre. "We should call the police," I said. But before I could finish, Lily shrieked and pointed to a shadowy figure in the corner. When we turned to look, it was gone. From that day on, everything went horribly wrong. Lily was the first to suffer. She became delusional, rambling about ghostly children playing in the villa. Then Mark vanished without a trace. Despite extensive searches, the police never found him. Next was Beth. She drowned in her bathtub, but the autopsy revealed her lungs were dry. Vincent lost control of his car and plunged off a cliff, and Edward was found dead in his sleep, the cause unknown. I began having nightmares about the basement, about those dolls moving by themselves, and the thorned cross dripping with blood. Each morning, I woke with mysterious scratches on my skin. Yesterday, I received a package with no return address. Inside was Lily's journal. On the last page, in shaky handwriting, the words "I'm sorry" were written over and over again. Now, I sit alone in the villa's living room, clutching Lily's journal. The trapdoor is open again, and faint footsteps echo from the basement. I know it's time to face the truth. I descend the stairs. The thorny vines retract on their own, and the rusty cross falls to the floor. The basement is colder and darker than I remember. The stench of rot's heavy in the air. The 5 dolls still sit in the center, but one has shifted to face the staircase, as if waiting for me. My heart pounds as I step closer. Strange new words are scrawled across the blood-red walls. The last one is coming. Terror grips me, but I force myself to remain calm. Something glints beside the dolls, a small wooden box, half open, with an old photograph inside. I pick it up, my hands trembling. It's a family portrait. The faces are blurred, but behind them stands a shadowy figure. That figure, it's me. My breath catches in my throat as a forgotten memory stirs deep within me. I don't remember ever being here before. So why am I in the picture? A faint giggle breaks the silence. The dolls shift slightly, their blank faces seeming to mock me. I stumble backward, knocking over a dusty picture frame. A child letter spills out, its edges blackened, with barely legible words. We were wrong. It wasn't him, the real one. Still there. She will return. My heart pounds harder as heavy footsteps creak on the floorboards above. They are slow, deliberate, coming closer to the basement door. I freeze, too terrified to breathe. The dolls' heads slowly turn toward the staircase, their painted lips curling into sinister smiles. Suddenly, the basement light flickers on, revealing a familiar figure in the corner. "Mark," I gasp. How are you here?" Mark looks gaunt but eerily calm. "I've been here all along, Anna," he says quietly, This villa hides a secret. We have to finish what was started. Finish what, I demand. He points to the dolls. They're the key. They witnessed everything and hold the curse. We need to find their origin to break it. Together, we search the basement until Mark finds a hidden drawer. Inside is an ancient book titled Truth and Redemption. The book reveals the Villa's chilling past. The family performed a forbidden ritual, hoping to gain eternal wealth. But the ritual went wrong, and an unspeakable entity claimed their souls, binding itself to the 5 dolls and waiting for new victims. There's a counter-ritual to banish it, Mark says. We have to try. We follow the book's instructions carefully. As Mark draws the final symbol, a deafening roar fills the basement. The dolls writhe and twist as the Thorned cross disintegrates. Then silence. It's over, Mark sighs, relief in his eyes. We broke the curse, I nod, but deep inside, doubt lingers. Was this truly the end, or just another beginning? We emerge into the dawn's light, leaving the cursed villa behind. But in the quiet of my heart, I wonder, did we really escape?